Hi there and welcome to this week's Deep Dive. My name's Honor Criswick. I'm a meteorologist and presenter here at the Met Office. This is a very special Deep Dive. It's actually my first one, so what could go wrong? I've finally been let loose on the touch screen, and we've got plenty of weather to talk about this week, from the snow and the ice that we saw last week, and then we went straight into a named storm over the weekend, Storm Bert, which brought quite widespread strong winds, some heavy outbreaks of rain and some snow for a time over the weekend too. So it was a multi-hazard event, plenty for us to talk about. Now the weather is calming down this week. We've got high pressure building, but there are a couple of things we need to keep our eye on. There is going to be some heavy rain at times in the south, and with high pressure building across the country, that's leading to some clear skies, so some chilly and frosty nights on their way, and also a risk of fog. And towards the end, we are going to have a quick look at how we do forecast fog too. So don't forget to watch until the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're a fan of this video, and you can leave comments as well. I'll try and take a look through the comments if you do have any questions. So let's get started then. So what I'm going to talk about to start off with is the weather that we saw last week and over the weekend. Obviously the main talking point was our named storm, Storm Bert, which we can see nicely on this satellite image. We can see it. Oh, here we go. If we start from Thursday into Friday, we can see it building out here into the Atlantic, moving frontal systems across the country. Then we eventually see it swirling around on the weekend just to the northwest of the country before it eventually cleared its way over to Scandinavia. So obviously this brought plenty of heavy rain across the country. So what we can see here is the view from space. This is satellite imagery, and I've just overlaid the radar onto this as well. So we can see from Friday night into Saturday, we can see that rain sweeping its way across the country, those brighter colours showing the heavy rain in places as well. What this doesn't show is the snow falling as well. Obviously, we started off in that really cold air mass, so as the rain fell into the colder air, it fell as snow at first, and then eventually as that frontal system brought in some slightly milder air, more and more the precipitation fell as rain rather than snow. And it also brought in some pretty strong winds across parts of the country too, and the winds were actually quite widely spread strong too. So what we're going to do first, we're going to take a look at some stats around Storm Bert. So I'm going to start off here with the maximum gust speeds that we saw. This is from the 23rd through to the 25th, as that storm was with us for around 2 to 3 days. So the top one here, we can see the date on the very far left, the site name, what area that the site is in, how high that site is, as well as the maximum speed in knots, and on the far right in miles per hour. So the top maximum gust wind speed that we did see as a result of Storm Bert, that was in Capel Curig in Gwynedd, and the top speed that we got to was 82 miles per hour. So obviously very strong winds. It's not the strongest we've seen with a storm moving through the UK, but obviously pretty strong winds here across parts of Wales. But what's interesting here is what we can see is if we take a look through just down the area column here, we can see we had strong winds in Wales. We also had some strong winds down to the south in parts of Devon, the Isle of Wight, and also we had strong winds to the far north of the country in parts of Cumbria and also Shetland too. So what's interesting about this storm as it moved through is that we did see some strong winds, but quite widespread across the country. They weren't really localised in one particular area. Many of us saw quite a blustery day, with the top speed being around 82 miles per hour in Wales. But many areas across the south reached mid to high 70s miles per hour, and even across Scotland we saw the high 60s. So particularly blustery conditions as Storm Bert moved its way through, particularly around any exposed spots. A few more stats here for you as well. This is once again from the 23rd to the 25th. What else did we see? Well, we also saw some snow. We saw some snow towards the end of the week. We were in that colder air mass, and as the storm moved its way through, that rain falling into the colder air mass, so it fell as snow for a time. But also as a result of the snow that we had towards the end of the week as well. So the top snow depth, this is from the 23rd to the 25th. That was in Loch Glascanock. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly, in Ross and Commentary there. So they saw 25 centimetres of snow. So that's the highest snow depth that we saw accumulating from the 23rd to the 25th. A slight word of caution around these snow depth figures is that across the Met Office we have a network of observation sites that collects this kind of data for us. But in terms of snow depth, sort of measurements across the UK, it's generally quite sparse. So there's probably a few locations that, or a few more locations that probably reached this kind of snow depth, a few more than what's this showing on this table here. So this just gives an overall summary of the kind of snow depths that we were looking at as that storm moved through. But there were probably a few other places where we didn't quite get measurements that had similar sorts of snow depths. But at the moment, it looks like the kind of top snow depth that we saw from the 23rd to the 25th was around 25 centimetres. But even in parts of Durham, we got to 21 centimetres. In parts of Derbyshire, we got to 18 centimetres. So a significant amount of snow, and that definitely did cause some impacts over the weekend. Now, a few more stats just to finish off. These are rainfall totals from the 23rd to the 25th. These are provisional figures at the moment, and it's also worth bearing in mind that some of these figures could also be as a result of the snow melt that we saw. So these figures may change. So once again, just kind of giving you a rough idea of the kind of impacts that we saw over the weekend. So in the number one spot, that's White Barrow in parts of Devon, where at the moment we're looking at around 175.7 millimetres of rain. So obviously that is a lot of rain over 2 to 3 days as a result of the storm. And obviously we saw some of the impacts to homes and infrastructure. We saw some flooding impacts in places too. But once again, fairly widespread across parts of Wales, parts of Devon. We saw very high rainfall totals, widely kind of above sort of between 140 to 175 millimetres of rain. So a lot of rain over the weekend. Now, in general, it looks like next week, or this week I should say, the weather is calming down, but there is also some rain in the forecast which could cause further impacts, particularly where we have seen flooding already. So let's move over then to the weather this week. So here we go then. This is quite a good chart actually. Shows the different kind of weather elements split into four. So over on the far right from me, we have the synoptic pattern where we see the frontal system, the isobars, and then just to the right of, or just to the left of this, we also have rainfall, then we have winds, and then we have temperatures. So as I mentioned already, there is generally high pressure is building, but we do have some slight caveats to that. As you can see on my far right, making sure I get my left and right right, we do have low pressure that's moving through Tuesday night, so tonight, through into Wednesday morning, and that is going to bring some outbreaks of rain. This could be heavy and persistent at times, and there is a chance it could affect areas that have already seen quite a lot of rain this weekend, and areas where we have seen some flooding too. So this is generally moving across the south from Tuesday night, through into Wednesday morning. Could be heavy and persistent at times before that high pressure really builds across the country, bringing a slight calmer spell. What we can see, we do have high pressure to the very far north of this, so it is on its way. So a thing to note about this is when we forecast here at the Met Office, we use a range of different models to give us an idea of what the weather's doing. And from time to time, all those models agree, and then we can kind of forecast with high kind of certainty, high levels of confidence. But there are times where we forecast when certain models say something slightly differently to what the other models are saying. And this can happen. It does happen quite a lot actually in longer lead times, but it can also happen in shorter lead times as well. And we've had a little bit of this week. Some models have had this area of rain slightly further north, impacting more across central and northern areas. But most models at this time in particular are keeping this rain to the far south. So that's the story that we're sticking with through Wednesday night into Thursday. But it's always worth keeping an eye on the forecast just in case this does change. Most models now do have this rain running just to the far south, but it's always worth keeping an eye on the weather forecast just in case it does change, and those few model runs that have it slightly further north are in fact correct. But at the moment it generally looks like this low pressure sweeping in these frontal systems to the south. Heavy and persistent rain at times, and there are a couple of rain warnings issued from the Met Office, so keep an eye on those if you are in this area. But to the far north, a slightly different story. It's shown quite well here by the temperatures actually. Temperatures ranging more from 3 to 4 degrees. We've got high pressure, clear skies. Those temperatures are really going to drop off Tuesday night through into Wednesday morning. But slightly further south, where we see those cloudier skies, where that rain starts to move in, we're looking at more between sort of 10 to 8 degrees, or 8 to 10 degrees, I should say. So a slightly milder night here. Temperatures not dropping quite as low under the cloud and rain, but those temperatures really dropping under those clear skies to the far north. If I drag this through, if we head to, oh, here we go. Just drag this through to Wednesday morning, kind of around rush hour time, just in case you're on your way to work Wednesday morning. You can see the rain generally has cleared the far southwest. It's looking likely there'll be some cloud, perhaps some rain and drizzle lingering on. Some heavy outbreaks of rain we could see around sort of the Sussex, Essex and Sussex area, and then some outbreaks of rain across parts of Wales, central areas and parts of East Anglia too. Not only this, but you can see that the isobars slightly closer together. The wind speeds are picking up a little bit too. So it's not only going to be quite a wet start across parts of the south on Wednesday, it's going to be a little bit blustery too, with winds really picking up, particularly around kind of coasts, exposed coasts, for example. So quite a wet start across the south on Wednesday. Do keep an eye on our forecast for that one. And as I say, we do have some Met Office weather warnings issued here. Eventually though, it's quite slow moving, but it will eventually clear its way off to the North Sea, and this then allows high pressure to build later on Wednesday and into Thursday. So Wednesday night, that high pressure is sitting quite nicely across parts of the UK. Now, what does this mean? Well, with clear skies, and you can see with the spread of the isobars as well, generally light winds, that can lead us into, well, firstly, actually staying in a slightly cold air mass as well. Those temperatures are going to drop away. So it's likely we're going to see quite a sharp, widespread frost, particularly across Scotland, Northern England, parts of Northern Ireland, likely to see a sharp frost here, perhaps even some icy stretches. So take care once again Thursday morning if you are out and about, particularly for the morning rush hour. Still slightly milder to the south, but those temperatures dropping away compared to tonight. But high pressure with clearer skies and light winds, that also leads us into the risk of some fog. And with temperatures below zero as well, that also leads us into the risk of some freezing fog patches as well. So a chance of more disruptive weather by the time we reach Thursday morning too, with some fog patches, perhaps some frost and some icy stretches as that high pressure builds. But it's also coming to the time of year as well, end of November, some of that fog may be thick enough to stick around for a time too, so a chance we could see some further fog warnings in the forecast this week too, so don't forget to stay updated on our website for those. Then high pressure is dominating the weather quite a lot for the rest of the week and into the weekend, but you can see it sitting slightly further to the east as well. So that does allow some frontal systems to move in at times. Notice once again a squeeze in the isobars in the west too. So from later Thursday into Friday through into the weekend, that high pressure that sits just slightly more to the east, that's allowing some rain, some stronger winds just moving into the west. So it's not going to be completely settled. And then eventually, but sort of the driest and brightest of the weather going to be across the far southeast. And then eventually that high pressure slipping away, allowing a bit more rain to move through on Wednesday and as we head into the weekend too. Another thing you'll notice about into the weekend, look at these temperatures. These are looking much milder for the time of year compared to the kind of cold dip that we've had in temperatures sort of last week and this week really. Looking at more by the time we reach Saturday between sort of 12 to 13 degrees, a significant change, particularly across parts of Scotland as well. So what I'm going to do is, to show this nicely, I'm going to get up. Oh, there we go, first time and it works. I'm going to get up some temperature graphs just to kind of show. So this is max temperature here at the top, and then we've got minimum temperature here on the bottom. This is in Brinnington, so just near Manchester, so sort of northern parts of England. So notice temperatures Tuesday roughly around about average for the time of year. We start to see that slight dip as we head into Wednesday and Thursday, that high pressure building, plenty of clear skies, particularly overnight, so seeing that drop in temperature. But by the time we reach the weekend, temperatures a bit milder for the time of year, so around 12 to 13 degrees. And this kind of trend in temperatures where we go from kind of average, we see that slight dip and then an increase onto the weekend, perfect timing really. That trend is kind of, we can see that across much of the country. So here we go, In Uddingston, close to Glasgow, we can see once again that dip in temperatures on Wednesday, starting to improve towards the end of the week, and then by the weekend, something slightly milder on the cards. And if we move our way to the far south as well, Southampton, once again, that dip and that trend to those slightly milder temperatures for the weekend. So that's the general gist of the weather this week. There are a couple of things to keep an eye on. The rain in the south, potentially being slightly further north as we reach Wednesday morning. High pressure building, bringing lots of settled conditions. There's probably going to be lots of sunshine around, but obviously those cold nights, those frosty nights, a risk of some ice, and also that risk of fog. And in some places, that fog could linger for a time, just where we're starting to move our way towards meteorological winter. We're moving our way towards the winter solstice, so the days are getting shorter, which doesn't help in terms of fog clearance. So let's take a look at that now. We'll take a look at some fog forecasting. Now, as a rule of thumb, if you didn't have anything at all, what you can do is you can take a wild guess at what time fog is going to clear. So for example, we're in November, that is the 11th month. So you could roughly say, as a rule of thumb, that the fog is going to clear at around 11 a.m. This is true for the kind of second 6 months of the year, but for the first 6 months, you take the number 13 and you take away the month of the year. So for example, in March, 13, take away 3, the March is the third month, 13 take away 3 is 10, and you could roughly guesstimate that the fog is going to clear around 10 a.m. Obviously here at the Met Office, with us as forecasters, that's probably not quite good enough, particularly if you're working, for example, in the aviation sector. So something that we like to use as forecasters is what we call a tephigram, which looks something like this. Now, don't be scared. They're not as complicated as they look. Once you know what all the lines mean, they're generally pretty easy to interpret. But these are great forecasting tools that we use here at the Met Office. We can really tell a lot from using one of these tephigrams as a forecaster. We can take a look at temperature, we can take a look at wind, we can take a look at cloud, whether it's layer cloud, so frontal cloud moving through, whether it's convective cloud, and from that we can tell how heavy precipitation is going to be, whether it's going to fall as rain or whether it's going to fall as snow. So they're really great forecasting tools. You'll look at them multiple times a day as a forecaster, every day in fact, and you really get used to them as well. So don't be afraid, I'm going to explain what this all means. So below the bottom here we've got temperature. So as I move my way to the left, temperature is decreasing. And then as we move our way up the y-axis, this is an increase with height. So we've got temperature decreasing as you move to the left, and as we increase upwards, that is temperature increasing high up in the atmosphere. So what this generally is showing us is temperature in the atmosphere as we move our way upwards. So these diagonal lines here, these are called isotherms. So these are constant temperature with height if you follow them upwards, if you follow the isotherm upwards. So they're moved slightly, they're in a more slightly diagonal kind of direction, and that just accounts for temperature generally decreasing as we move up higher in the atmosphere. So that's why they're on a slight slant. And this dashed line here, this red dashed line, this is the 0 degree isotherm. So this is constantly 0 degrees as we move up in the atmosphere, and you follow this diagonal line. So anything to the left of this is below 0, and anything to the right is above 0. So colder, warmer. Then we have this solid blue line. So this shows us as we increase the height of the atmosphere, this is what our temperature is going to be. So if I wanted to know the temperature at this height, I'd follow this isotherm downwards, and this gives me -7. So at this height, which is about 9,000 foot, I know that the temperature is going to be -9. So this is temperature as you increase with height, so the temperature of the air. This blue dashed line, this is what we call dew point temperature. So this is the temperature that the air would have to cool to in order to become saturated. Therefore, the further apart these lines are, the drier the air. So here we can see the air is very dry aloft, so probably blue skies looking at this. And towards the surface of the Earth, the lines are very close together. In fact, they're overlapping towards the surface of the towards the ground, sorry. So this is very moist air. So the lines further apart, that's dry air, and to the south, that's very moist air, where the lines are very close together, if not touching. So this shows us that the ground around the surface is very moist, it's very saturated. We already know we have clear skies and light winds replenishing the kind of moisture in the air. So this gives an indication that there is cloud, and this could be anywhere on the tephigram. If the lines were closer together near the top, we know we were going to get some high level cloud, or sort of towards the middle of the tephigram, some medium level cloud. But the lines are together towards the surface, so low level cloud touching the ground. In other words, fog. So straight away as a forecaster, when you look at this tephigram, you can see that there is a fog risk. We've got moisture at the surface, we've got clear skies where the temperature is going to drop. So this means here, where the temperatures are touching, this means that the air is saturated here. So temperature and dew point temperature are roughly similar, so that means dew is going to deposit onto the ground. We've got light winds constantly replenishing that air, and the water vapour becomes suspended in the air, and that's how we start to get cloud formation right here at the surface. So this is where the fog is beginning to form. Not only this, actually, I've just noticed it's just to the left of the 0 degree isotherm. So there is a chance, actually, a risk that this could be freezing fog. This is one of our modelled tephograms from our global model. This is Thursday morning in the Midlands. So already this is a very good indication that we are expecting some fog Thursday morning in the Midlands as a result of this moisture low to the surface. Another thing we can do with these tephograms is that we can work out the temperature that the air needs to be in order for fog formation. And this is called a fog point, which we can see here in the pink line. So our fog point is minus 0.9. Our dew point temperature is minus 0.8. And the temperature, if our air temperature is 1.9, then our fog point is going to be minus 0.9. So we can see here from the solid blue line that our temperature is probably roughly, it just cuts off, it's probably around minus 0.1, 0.2. So very close to the fog point temperature, and therefore it's likely that we're going to get fog in the Midlands by the time we reach Thursday morning. Not only that, but a chance of some freezing fog as well. So rather than just going over the rule of thumb that I mentioned earlier, we can use instruments such as a tephigram in order to help us forecast fog. We know what temperature we need to get to in order for fog formation. But even with a best guess, with the clear skies, light winds, it is we're always thinking about that we're going to get a chance of radiation fog, and this kind of solidifies that forecast for you. Now, there's loads of different ways to forecast fog. There's loads of different things that we can use with these tephograms. So that's quite a brief introduction to fog forecasting. So if you want us or me to go into more detail, feel free to leave some comments and some questions, and we can perhaps revisit it in another video. But it does mean that we could end up with scenes similar to this by the time we reach Wednesday morning, and in particular Thursday morning. And as I mentioned, as the days are getting shorter, we're getting very close to meteorological winter, so a chance we could see some quite dense fog patches that are really going to struggle to clear. And obviously where we're getting quite cold in those northern areas as well, temperatures widely dropping below zero, a chance we could see some freezing fog patches too. Now, not much of a hazard in general. Walking around actually makes for some quite nice pictures, but for certain services such as the aviation sector, that is a really big hazard for aircraft, so freezing fog. So definitely a lot to play for in the forecast this week. The heavy rain in the south, the frost, the risk of ice, and also the risk of fog. So as always, stay updated on our website in case there are any warnings this week, and obviously take care if you're out and about, particularly in the morning, where we could see some quite dense fog patches that struggle to clear. But otherwise, that's it from me. There we go, we did it. We got through the first deep dive. Don't forget, you can like and subscribe. Leave any comments. If you have any further comments or questions about fog forecasting, leave them below and I'll try and take a look and answer as many as I can. Not only that, but we do have our live on Friday, 12:15, so stay tuned for that one. And if you have any fog questions or any general questions about the weather this week, then we'll be there to answer them too. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed, and that's it from me. Bye-bye.